To be determined, Friday Show, episode 15.
Wait, you knew that?
I knew that off the top of my
You
head.
have it up? Oh, you did? On top of the head?
Top of the head. Now it's going to be bad if it's wrong. But I'm pretty sure we're up to 15.
Well, it's all good because I provided no answer to that. So, is it no answer or bad answer? What's better? I don't know.
I think no answer is better because that's the mystery.
It's better win percentage.
Better win percentage, that's true. You're not
Is
0
it?
for.
Actually, no. It's still .000.
Just 0-0. But if you're 0 for 1, you're worse. I think. I don't know. Tomato, tomato, right?
No one says tomato.
Okay.
No one says tomato or potato.
Yeah, I've never heard that. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't make a ton of sense. All right, 3 topics for you. We got to touch on the Louisville scandal. Louisville or Louisville? I've heard that both ways.
I think I need to say it's definitely not just Louisville. It is
Louisville.
nationwide.
That's a debate or what?
No. It's not just a Louisville scandal. I mean, the FBI.
No. I'm saying, how do you pronounce it? Louisville or Louisville?
Oh, it's the first one. It's Louisville.
Louisville. Okay.
It's kind of like how Rochesterians say Rochester. They just
so it's weird. It's weird.
syllables together.
Rochester.
Rochester.
You guys say it funny. All right. Louisville scandal. Nick Saban saying that the NFL protests are not meant to disrespect veterans, which is very interesting. And then we'll preview the Bills game versus Atlanta. We touched on the Syracuse game already with Fox Esquire, Matt Hosworth, so download episode 30 to catch that. Good catch by you, Trabs, because I was ready to preview that, and we don't need to. We did it already.
Raleigh, it could be rough in Raleigh.
It's enough said. Enough said. All right, so let's start with Louisville. The actual scandal. What do you make of this actual scandal?
Well, it's not just Louisville. What you're seeing is, in terms of guys getting in trouble, it happened a few days before you saw what fell with the Richard Pitino firing there. Or not necessarily a firing. I think he's on paid leave because of something where I think 10 to 12 days before he gets terminated, he needs to be told about it, as opposed to, a couple days. So, a bunch of rigmarole with Rich there.
Yeah.
Rich is his son, Rick. So, what you're seeing is a bunch of assistants before him even went down. And that's where you would expect a lot of this to happen. But you had in the FBI findings that he was listed as a coach to the main culprit there in the Louisville staff. That's not good. That means he's 1 degree of separation away from this. And yes, it's mostly assistants that are seeing themselves being taken away from their jobs, and even worse when it comes to criminal activity. Chuck Person is a legend in college basketball. He might get 80 years for what he did as an assistant coach.
That's
but yeah,
crazy.
Richard Pitino. Keep saying Richard. That's because I'm a Big Ten guy. He's a coach in Minnesota. So with Pitino, Louisville, it just had to happen. You had too many scandals recently in terms of the Andre McGee scandal when it came to prostitution, and that being
You're saying, hold on, let me stop you real quick. You're saying in terms of him being fired, it had to happen.
Yes, it had to happen in terms of
him being fired.
Down to Louisville. Yeah, that he had to be, because there was just too many scandals happening in a short span.
I wanted to clarify that because I didn't know what you were saying, that it meaning the FBI had to come down on them, because the FBI is what makes this interesting. This is the big boy leagues. For years, we've had the NCAA almost being like a toothless organization where, yes, they could give you the death penalty, but obviously it was never done. And what authority do they really have? And I think even the NCAA admitted that what authority do we really have over this? These types of things have happened for years. These $100 handshakes, this is nothing new. And I don't think people are blind to this fact. I don't think we're naive to this. But when you start talking about the FBI being involved, that's where this gets taken up another notch. And that's where I sit back and ask, okay, so Louisville's the first. How many others are going to be guilty?
Well, you've already seen plenty of other ones in this scandal. Oklahoma State, Auburn, Arizona. Louisville in this first wave. There's been a couple handfuls of schools. In terms of how far reaching is going to be past this, it depends when they get into Under Armour schools, when they get into Nike schools. It is a big deal that yesterday you had a subpoena by the FBI to the Nike EYBL, because that is large and away the top AAU league in this country. So they're going to have the most prospects. I mean, coaches is one thing, but what's going to hurt is when you have Albany City Rocks. I really hope you don't have some local guys, some Rochesterians, some Albany, Buffalo, Syracuse, some coaches that do some high school stuff around here that have connections to that program. I don't think it'll be that far reaching, but I hope that's not where it goes. But that'll be one of the biggest. I mean, programs are big. There's some massive college programs, but the Nike YBL, have their feet in a lot of things, have their hands in a lot of things. So that would be a really big issue. That's where it is. Right now, it's really only Adidas.
I wonder what was the tipping point for the FBI. What made them decide we have to investigate this? Because everyone keeps asking the question, shouldn't the FBI have something better to do with their time? And the initial answer would be yes, you would think that. But if you're talking about a guy getting 80 years in prison, that's serious stuff. You don't go away for 80 years for nothing. So I want to know what's the tipping point where they decided, okay, we've seen enough of this behind the scenes, or we see what's actually going on behind the scenes to where we want to step in. We may not know that for a while. That's a question that will probably go unanswered for a while, but that's what I'm most interested in. Even I don't know if it's more so, but equally as so as who else is involved. We assume that the top programs are involved in this. You would assume that maybe a Duke or a Kentucky wouldn't have to do this just because of the name, but then again, maybe they would. You don't know with that. I just want to know what was the straw that broke the camel's back that made the FBI say, we've got to do something about this.
I think the tipping point here was the massive amounts of money, because yes, it's been going on for essentially as long as college sports have really become that extra level of popularity.
Yeah.
When you mix in bigger fan bases and the fact that they really got television included on this, when you had more money in general going on in the sport. But with this one, you have what is assumed to be Brian Bowen, McDonald's All-American, going to Louisville, him being given supposedly $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
That is where stuff gets a little bit more real.
Mm-hmm.
Even with those bigger amounts being included, and then you have $150,000 or $115,000, something with a 5 in it going on with Arizona possibly.
I think it was 150.
But there have not been a lot of names attached to maybe whatever recruit or player one in that sense is.
Yeah, this idea is nothing new. College football, back in the day, and I can't remember where I heard this story, but it was recently as it pertained to this whole Louisville scandal, way back in the day. College football used to basically pay players. The idea was that you paid for players, and they weren't necessarily students, but they would just show up to whoever paid them the most to play the games. That was the idea. Way, I'm talking like Leatherhead days. So this is nothing new. The idea that it's something has changed. No, I think it's just the way money flows. That's the idea. It's kind of like the steroids and the testing, where guys find ways to take steroids, then the leagues or the governing bodies eventually catch up with them, and then they find other ways to take them, and they find different steroids to take. This is the money's still being exchanged. That basic idea still exists. It's just, how does the money flow from one party to the other? That's how it's changed over the years. And that's the interesting part to me about this whole thing, is that we're going through shoe companies and AAU coaches, and the web has been tangled in an unbelievable fashion. And maybe that's why the FBI decided to get involved, because there were so many people and what I'm assuming are so many people dipping their hands in the cookie jar.
The amounts of money might be a lot bigger in this case, but I still do not think that the FBI, like you said earlier, you alluded to earlier, do they have better things to do? In terms of who is getting hurt, people are not dying in this situation.
True.
I think the FBI should definitely be doing other things. Yes, the NCAA isn't great. They choose to go about their business in maybe topics that they shouldn't. Maybe they should pick where they're putting their focus on different things. Mm-hmm. Yes. But really, FBI, and I'm just upset as someone, this is the top sport to me, men's college basketball.
Sure.
And my thing is, I don't really have a favorite team. I want to see the general talent base nationwide be the best it possibly could be. And even if the only person that gets taken out of it this upcoming season is Brian Bowen, that is still a massive hit to it. And it's too bad. I think it's going to be much far reaching than just that in terms of players actually leaving, him leaving campus recently. So
many have pointed
yeah,
to...
I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is what they should be doing.
Right. Many have pointed to the one and done rule as the reason this may be the latest scandal, the latest reason that they're exchanging money is happening. Do you buy that? Do you feel that if we eliminate the one and done rule, we would eliminate at least some of these quote $100 handshakes or $100,000 handshakes?
I think that would definitely help, because if you go to the rule they've been talking about for a few years now, either going right to the NBA out of high school or getting 2 years. Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing where people, and well, mostly people at these shoe companies, think that they can really latch onto a guy because it's only 1 year.
Yeah.
And then they're up for them in terms of professional contracts and shoe deals.
Sure.
So if you put 2 years on it, I'm not sure it's going to be as advantageous for shoe companies to pursue something like that. And then the other side of that proposed plan, with people going right into, if they think their talent is good enough, going right into the NBA, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, there's no NCAA eligibility issues there. And I mean, you can't get, I mean, I don't think the NBA is going to penalize people for taking money if they're in high school at that point. Even though it's probably a little bit too early from certain standpoints, still, I mean, really is going to be no repercussions to the shoe companies getting involved with someone who's going to make that decision a little bit earlier. Granted, I think it should be 2 or none because, like I said a second ago, my allegiance lies with this sport, the college level, as opposed to the NBA level. So I would like to see 2 and done at most, but that's just not realistic. If 2 gets put into it at all, it's going to come with that added aspect of maybe going right after high school.
I just don't think 2 and done. I mean, listen, we're talking about many billions of dollars here among all the companies. So if 1 year's 100,000, 2 years becomes 200,000. Do you see what I'm saying? I just, when you're talking in terms of billions, $200,000 is nothing. It just, to me, it means nothing. So to me, it would still continue with a 2 and done rule. I think 2 and done, you're right, would absolutely benefit college basketball. I agree. I would like to see that. But to me, the more sensible thing is to literally just do right from high school to the NBA. No year or 2 rule. That makes the most sense in my mind. Listen, I'm a college basketball fan like you are, certainly nowhere near the degree you are. But I would like to see guys stick around for a few more years. I just don't think that's going to, in my mind, I don't think it solves it, because when you instead of giving 100,000 to 10 different kids, we're going to give 200,000 to the top 5 kids then, whatever the number might be. I just don't think it eliminates it. That's all. Listen, this thing is, it's like an iceberg. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. This thing's going to go many feet below the surface, and the more we uncover, as I like to say, this is going to make for one hell of a 30 for 30.
I think the maturation and the level of play would really take a hit if they go with the former rule of allowing guys to go right out of high school. Because I think you're seeing right now, guys are a lot more ready. And a lot of that's because of the NBDL turned the NBA D League, turned now the NBA G League. That definitely helps. I mean, you had a couple years ago, I saw a Twitter graphic that said 2/3 of everybody that played in the G League, what's called now, were on final day rosters regular season wise in the NBA.
Let me ask
so
you
it
something,
shows that having guys with more college experience is definitely helping where the game is coming. And those are the guys that are sticking in the league. I think you see a lot more busts in terms of the draft, not happening now, but happening back when that rule was in place.
Let me ask you something, because you bring up the G League, and it just sparked this question in my mind. So if we're going to take players out of high school, and again, this is an argument based in theory and not in actuality, but if we're going to take players out of high school, and the NBA has talked about bolstering that G League, wouldn't it make sense that becomes the feeder league? And I get that it hurts college basketball. That's the idea, is that it directly hurts college basketball. And I don't even think the owners want this, because now they're forced to spend money on players in a league that probably won't turn a profit. But to me, that's the natural progression, is that you would draft guys, and as we've noted, the top 10 guys in the draft actually have some impactful minutes, some minutes in the NBA that mean something the first couple of years. All to me it's doing is, do you want an education or do you want to go make a little bit of money in the G League? That's the scenario it would create, is that you would have a feeder league that would be significantly better than it is right now.
And you've seen a few guys here and there. I mean, not necessarily like a Brandon Jennings going overseas or an Emmanuel Mudiay. But instead of that European aspect, that European trip in terms of that bridge in between high school and then getting to the NBA, if you don't think you're going to be eligible, you have seen not as big of a level, but you've seen some guys go the NBA D-League route in terms of getting their eligibility to get into the draft that way. So it would definitely be interesting. It'd definitely be an interesting way to go about it. And, hey, I mean, they're going to be playing against guys like nobody that's in the NBA now G League was not a star, or at least a very productive player at the college level.
Yeah.
So they're definitely be playing against maybe better competition than they would have been playing in college, and certainly overseas, if you ask me, even though they are going to be playing against maybe some former NBA guys over there as well. But, I mean, these are guys with rights to teams. These are guys that draft picks. I mean, Thomas Bryant might be spending a lot of time, I should say, with the Los Angeles Defenders this upcoming season. So you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff going on. There's going to be pretty good competition if they do choose that as a feeder league.
All right, let's move to Saban and the NFL. This will be a bridge between our two topics. Good discussion there on the Louisville stuff. I think listen, it's an interesting topic. We could go on, and I know you could go on for the next hour or 3 about it, but for time's sake, we'll move along to the program. Saban protesting, or Saban saying, rather, the NFL protests are not meant to disrespect veterans. He's saying here, and I can't remember where it was. This is a CBS Sports article. I believe he's talking to a veteran for this quote, and I'll try to get the quote here. I don't think that what these people are doing is in any way, shape, or form meant to disrespect a veteran or someone like yourself who has worked so hard, fought so hard, sacrificed so much for all of us to have the quality of life that we want to have, Saban saying. So, it's interesting. One of the things that you also fought for and made sacrifices for was that we all could have the freedom to have choice. And so that's the interesting part, is that here Saban is, as the head coach, the face of the University of Alabama, and what I would argue is maybe the face of the state, the same place where Donald Trump first made the remarks about the NFL and how these guys should be fired for protesting. I think this is an interesting stance here. I mean, that state, not that they would necessarily come and go as Nick Saban does, but a lot of Tide fans that might be upset about this, and some other ones that, hey, maybe he will change some minds down in a very red state.
Yeah, I would say this is a little bit, not super, super surprising, but definitely powerful stuff from Nick Saban, because when you look at it as, I'm surprised when I first heard a reference about this, I thought it wasn't as an adamant or a long statement he made, but he definitely gave a lot of support. He went very deep with it for what people are doing in terms of protesting the anthem. And then on top of that, to say it to a veteran, not to be saying this behind closed doors. I mean, that's very powerful, that who he said it to, how long he said it, and how deep he went with it. And like you just mentioned a second ago, him saying that in that state.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it'll get people to listen, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. I think it definitely gets people to listen.
That's the most powerful thing, is that it's the same state that the original comments were made in. That's what makes this a very interesting story to me. Listen, Saban, I think, is the highest paid state employee in Alabama. If I'm not mistaken, he's the highest paid college coach for football. This is a guy that has a platform and a voice, and not that he's Bill Belichick-esque, but he's as grumpy at a press conference as Belichick is. So when he says something like this, I think there's extra meaning behind it, because normally you don't get much out of Nick Saban.
It's one of the most adamant things I've ever heard or been listened to a statement of that has ever happened.
By Nick Saban.
In terms of
yeah.
me, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is just, it's fascinating. I'm really interested to see the reaction to this. So this article came out 2 hours ago. We're recording this at 12:30 on a Friday. So at 10 in the morning, this article comes out.
It's 12:22. Don't you fib.
Sorry. It just says 2 hours here. Barrett Saley is the author of the article here. So really interesting stuff. So, okay. Apparently this was said Thursday night on Nick Saban's radio show called Hey Coach, where it's typically fan questions. So they're basically softballs, a bunch of softball questions. So this one must have come in from a veteran, I'm assuming. Just a fascinating statement by Nick Saban. Again, and what makes it so fascinating is that he doesn't typically say much, and it's the same state that Trump made the statements from. I'm really interested to see what the backlash is, and you know,
that state. I mean, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they're number one. They just clobbered Vanderbilt, so you don't necessarily always need to tune into Bama games because you know what the result's going to be, especially with Saban there. But this Saturday, I'm interested to see what happens. They host Ole Miss on Saturday night, so it's going to be a good SEC battle no matter what. But I wonder what the backlash is, if any, by Bama fans to this.
I think it's pronounced Ole Miss.
Ole Miss? Okay, sorry.
It's not true. But
that's simply
the point. I like the point in terms of Saban being a guy that doesn't usually talk too much in the public, and him certainly going against that with this statement.
Mm-hmm.
And similar in the last week or two, you had Greg Popovich taking a strong stance, a similar stance on this topic. And not to say that they would be racist, but it's still surprising that they went not only this way, but also very strong this way. And the fact that they don't like talking, and they talked in length about this, very powerful stuff.
It is. It definitely is. All right. So that bridges the gap to our final topic. Nice hand gesture there. Bills.
I don't think that's a good bridge. I think it's a bridge that's failing.
Bridge. That's
not an OSHA approved. Struggling. It's still a struggling bridge.
Does OSHA approve bridges?
I don't think. Just hard hats, ladders.
All right.
Ointments.
Hard hats.
Salves.
The Bills traveling to the ATL to face the Falcons. This is a tough matchup for them. This is a very tough matchup. This matchup causing some controversy among the TBD fantasy football team, I might add. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Tevin Coleman here because I believe in the Bills' defense. But as was noted by the general manager, Larry Legend, they got a lot of weapons. This Atlanta offense has a lot of weapons.
And we've seen already this season, we saw last season, that the Atlanta offense has a lot of home run threats. I mean, Taylor Gabriel last week, Julio Jones over his career, Austin Hooper in week 1, Tevin Coleman, especially catching balls out of the backfield. So they have, Devontae Freeman is usually like a short touchdown kind of guy. So I'm not sure he includes in that, but certainly overall, in terms of their weapons, he's definitely included in that. And Buffalo is a big play defense in terms of their secondary, in terms of their passing defense. They actually have given up a pretty good amount of yards this season, but they get their hands on a lot of balls. They've had a good amount of interceptions this season, especially last season, or last week, I should say, not last season. So it's that big play aspect. Can Matt Ryan coordinate big plays? That's going to be a big thing when it comes to this game.
What do you do here? Do you double Julio? Do you leave him? Do you leave whoever's going to guard him, which I'm assuming is going to be Trey White, the rookie? Really, welcome to the big time. This is a top 3 receiver, top 5 at worst. Do you leave him on the island there? Do you double him and then leave Sanu on the island? Leave whoever covers Sanu on the island? This is going to be an interesting challenge for Sean McDermott's defense. A defense that we have both noted is significantly better than we thought coming into the year.
Especially the secondary.
And that I was just going to say, that's the point, is that we didn't know what to make of the secondary. It's completely new. It's a completely new system. So the fact that they've had this much success, the fact that EJ Gaines is rated as high as he is, the fact that Trey White wins Defensive Rookie of the Month his first month in the NFL, the fact that Jordan Poyer looks all of a sudden like a legitimate safety out of nowhere, where he wasn't a big signing out of Cleveland. Micah Hyde, obviously the biggest signing of the bunch, and you could argue he's been the quietest.
Yeah.
Which is
Absolutely.
crazy. That's insane to think about. What's the key for the Bills versus Atlanta? Frankly, is to keep the football in their hands. They have to create first downs. They have to move the chains, especially on third down. To me, that's the only way you beat Atlanta.
Going back to Trey White for a second, I know we were talking about, I don't know if it's on the Friday show or the real show, he had some issues with a big wide receiver. Now, Julio Jones is not as thick as Kelvin Benjamin, but he had a lot of issues in terms of corralling Kelvin Benjamin week 1 against the Panthers. So it'd be really tough to leave him on an island. So I'm not sure that's the case, but I think they have to get the running game going. Because last week, Tolbert wasn't even up to par with what he's been doing all season long, helping to spell a struggling, possibly more injured than he's making it out to be, LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah.
Now, this is, both teams are top 8 run defenses. So Atlanta is definitely good at stopping the run, but no Vic Beasley Jr. anymore. So they have to exploit whatever they can against the run defense. That good for Atlanta. So I think LaShawn McCoy, this is a big game for him.
And again, if they do control the run game, they control the clock. And that's the biggest thing for this Bills offense right now. I think the Bills team overall, you have to keep Matty Ice on the sideline. You just have to. You get out to it. Their biggest thing is getting out to a lead early on. Atlanta can match you, but if you get out to the lead and bleed the clock dry with the run game, that to me is the only strategy against this Falcons team. This Falcons team is good. Can you imagine if the Bills go down to Atlanta against a team that looks like they could head back to the Super Bowl and get a win?
And Atlanta's had some shaky aspects of the season so far, and they're still undefeated in a league a league and a season where the NFL is just not seeing a lot of undefeated teams. There's like so few undefeated teams. Yeah. Usually there's a lot bigger group further into the season, but very little, very lacking in that so far.
Yep.
So, but you cannot let Taylor Gabriel get away from you. You cannot only think about Julio Jones in this game because he showed what he can do last week. And that's just what worries me because they're going to think too much about Julio Jones maybe.
Oh, and you got Mohamed Sanu on the other side of that who's very dangerous as well.
Yeah, Taylor Gabriel doesn't even start technically.
Yeah.
And he can do what he did last week. So
the playoff buzz is already starting around this Bills team because they're, again, 2-1, and I think it's a shaky 2-1.
That's the thing. That's why I think people should settle down.
It's a shaky 2-1, but we're assuming even past Sunday here. Let's assume the Bills move to 3-1 with a win over Atlanta.
That would be their first.
You've got wins over Denver, the Jets, which is like a half a win, but it's a win, and wins over Atlanta. Listen. I thought they were going to start the season 1-3. If they start all of a sudden this first quarter 3-1, I will buy the playoff chatter. I'll buy it. Simply because of who they've beaten.
Yeah, this would give them their first quality win because Denver was just being set up for a letdown offensively. They were never going to be that good deep into this season. So that one definitely has not an asterisk on it. It's still the Broncos, still the number 1 defense in the NFL. Really not that arguably when you look at the statistics.
Yeah.
But, they weren't expected to win by too much. Denver was. So, Atlanta would definitely make me kind of come off this.
You'd open your eyes.
Yeah, because, Atlanta would be, that would be a legitimate holy crap win.
It's a good way to describe it. That's a good way to describe it.
Holy crap.
Who do they have week 5? I'm just, not that we should move too far in advance here, but I know they're on a bye week 6. I'm just trying to pull up the schedule here. Okay, Cincinnati. So it's 2 big road games here. It's 2 very big road games. At Atlanta and at Cincinnati.
The Bengals would figure out a little bit more by then.
You would think, but there's a lot of chatter in Cincinnati about getting rid of Andy Dalton and seeing
get McCarron
what
out there.
Seeing what AJ McCarron can give you. So that's a Cincinnati team that is a playoff staple to make the playoffs and then lose the first round. But it's at least, the very least, a playoff team.
At least a playoff team, yeah.
At least a playoff team. But this year doesn't appear to be.
No.
The schedule gets tough over the next 4 games. To me, are very tough. The fortunate thing is you do have a bye week 6, but Atlanta week 4, Cincinnati week 5, bye in week 6. Then you host 2 very good teams, Tampa Bay and Oakland.
Oh boy.
It's conceivable they go 0-4 here. I think the likely scenario is 1-3.
1-3. Yeah.
That seems to be the likely scenario.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, listen, does it get easier from there? You go and play a Saints team that I would argue you're just as good as.
Yeah, the Saints.
The Saints aren't a phenomenal team, but again, Drew Brees can light it up. There's always that threat for Drew Brees to light it up. Selfishly, we hope Drew lights it up for our fantasy team, but that's it. That's the only reason. You go on the road, weeks 11 and 12, and we're way ahead here, to face...
Jeez.
to go on the road to face the Chargers and the Chiefs. And so the next, when you look at it, 8 games or so, because then you host the Patriots at home, the next 8 games are tough. And then you close the season out with Dolphins at home, Patriots on the road, Dolphins on the road. The only easy game late is the Colts. The only easy game. And we still don't know whether they'll have Andrew Luck back or not.
That changes
by week 14. It changes that team entirely. But I would argue the Bills have had success against Indianapolis in recent years. So listen, we have gone down a rabbit hole way too far here. Way too far. The point is that this is, to me, a crucial part of the season. If the Bills can steal 2 wins here, that would be huge.
Yeah.
That would be huge.
They go 2-2?
Yeah, I think it would be huge for them to be above 500 entering the Jets week 9. This is a big part of the season. Absolutely big part of the season. All right, no show on Sunday. We will record on Monday and drop it Monday night. Still working on guests.
That we are.
Still working on guests. So make sure you download and subscribe any archived episodes. Make sure you do subscribe, because if you subscribe and head into the podcasting app, it'll pop right up. Check out the social media links below this on YouTube and below on the website, tobedeterminedshow.com. Anything else?
Let me dance.
It's good for the audio version.
Let me dance.